Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A good topic? Let's do it. What's one of the scariest things you've ever seen, but no one believes you? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I was playing on my computer, which is upstairs in my house. My wife had gone out for the night with her sisters, and my dogs started going crazy, which made me think my wife had pulled up in her driveway. I waited to hear her get to the front door and come inside, but my dogs kept barking for a couple of minutes. I got a little worried, so I decided to see what the fuss was about. My dogs were located at the top of the stairs and were barking down to the front door. As I turned the corner to go downstairs, I spotted a figure looking upstairs in the darkness. I yell, "What the?" and run to get my phone in my office. As I get my phone, my dogs go crazy. They frantically try to back up on the wood floor and kind of just spin their wheels. I look at them, and their heads follow movement coming up the stairs, over the railing, and into the guest bedroom. My dogs reposition themselves and are looking within the bedroom. My dogs are absolute sweethearts, and my boy Walter has his fangs out in a way I've never seen, like a wolf. My girl Ellie is around 9 months old, and she's barking as hard as she can while pissing herself. I stood there in shock at their reactions when all of a sudden, a noise very similar to the buffering noise experienced in a car with only 1 or 2 windows rolled down. That goes on for maybe 15 seconds. Once it stops, my dogs stop barking as well and run into the guest room, looking for something. We've had weird things happen in our house, but this was the worst. What made the night even more awful was that I was mocked by my wife and her sisters when I asked for her to come. She believes me now, but at the time, it was horrible. I woke up in the middle of the night and thought I saw a person in my apartment. From the bedroom, you can see into the living room, and there was this thing walking back and forth. It then crouched down by the front door and waited. I woke up my wife and told her someone was in the apartment. I then grabbed a big flashlight we keep by the bedside, slipped out of bed, and rushed the thing. When I got there, it was gone. The next morning, my wife told me she didn't remember a thing, but I swear someone or something was in our living room. I had a dream about the tide coming in very fast and high and running to make it on top of a building, just as it turned and started pulling everything away around me. Trees, cars, buildings, people. I woke up and came out half awake and told my dad about the dream. He stared at me and told me a massive tsunami had just happened in the Indian Ocean, with scenes on land like I'd described. The really odd part is that I'd never known what a tsunami should really look like. If you ask me, I would have said just a really large wave. When I was little, my mom redecorated my room entirely with Teletubbies, literally. Curtains, lamps, sheets, stickers, every single thing was Teletubbies themed because I used to be obsessed with them. I had these gigantic, lifelike pillows from each of the Teletubbies that I'd sleep with every night. I used to sleep with my door open because I was scared of the dark. Well, one night, I started seeing colorful figures the size of the pillows I'd sleep with in my doorway, and I would scream to my mom, crying. And she'd come running and asking what's wrong. And I'd tell her I saw colorful men in the hallway, and she would reassure me it was nothing and lay with me till I went back to sleep. It started happening every night. I'd see colorful figures or figures that looked exactly like the pillow standing in my doorway, and I would scream and cry. Finally, my mom got rid of everything and gave everything to a family friend because I had never had that happen to me before, and they offered to take it, and I never had a problem again. I honestly forgot about it after all that. She redid my room, and she figured maybe the whole thing was just scaring me for whatever reason. A few years pass by, and it comes up in a conversation with me and my mom. I completely forgot anything about this and even forgot about it again until this thread. We were talking about how I had the whole Teletubby room, and then she told me about where the stuff went, etc. The family friend, who at the time there were 6 people living in that house, 2 of whom had special needs. They were stress babies, so although they can function like normal and have normal conversations with you, They kind of have the mind of a kid as far as taking care of themselves. So they can't really live on their own. Anyway, she told me that they told her that weird stuff started to happen at their house too, once they got my old Teletubbies, life-size pillows and things. She said they started to see figures in the basement, which is where the special needs girls' room were. It was converted into a nice bedroom, and she had all of my old bedroom stuff in it. They started to see figures, and weird stuff would happen, like radios turning on and off when they were unplugged, TVs turning channels by themselves. They'd find random things that they knew no one touched or moved in different parts of the house. They'd hear weird noises or see things. It was really weird. I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but one day the house randomly caught fire, and there was a little girl over the house that the family friend household was watching. She ended up dying in the fire because she ran back into the closet when everyone was trying to get her to jump out. It was really tragic. I remember meeting her days before she died and was just shocked to hear the news. It's so weird to me that all of that happened after they got my old Teletubby stuff. I'm sure it had nothing to do with it, but I'm just connecting how weird it was that all this happened right after they got my things. Teletubbies on their own are creepy enough, so yeah, I could see that there are haunted and possessed Teletubbies out there. Life-size, yeah. For an entire week, the same car would follow me on my commute to college. I was very suspicious after day 2, so I pulled into a parking lot along the way. The car then followed me into the parking lot, and we both waited there for about 15 minutes. As I pulled back onto the road, the car still followed. This happened for several more days. Then, one day I was walking my dog at night, and I saw the vehicle that had been following me. Several hooded figures exited the car and began slowly approaching. I picked up my dog and ran away. I never saw the car again, and people just think I'm paranoid. When I was 5 years old, me and my family lived in Mexico. We stayed at my grandma's house. One night I woke up and my brother and mom were asleep. We shared a bed. I looked toward the window, and the street lights were shining through a thin curtain so you could see outside decently. So I looked out toward the window and saw a shadow figure that looked like a woman, as if she were looking inside our window. She had a pointy hat on, too. I remember hiding under the blanket and peeking out, and the shadow was still there. I was too scared to say anything to my mom to wake her up. I don't remember anything clearly after that. I just remember waking up and having that image imprinted in my head, which I still do these days. Mexico has some witches, so it's possible that's what I saw. Small college town. I was 19, not too much to do besides waste time walking around Walmart. We'd periodically try to go and scare ourselves. The town was known for having a high number of witches and such. Finding abandoned places and even altars wasn't uncommon. Anyway, one of the easiest ways to scare ourselves was to go into the sewers downtown. They were big enough for 6 people or so to walk shoulder to shoulder through. And gonna restart that one, had some dog barking in the background. Small college town. I was 19 and not too much to do besides waste time walking around Walmart. We'd periodically try and go and scare ourselves. The town was known for having a high number of witches, and as such, finding abandoned places and even altars wasn't uncommon. Anyway, one of the easiest ways to scare ourselves was to go into the sewers downtown. They were big enough for 6 people or so to walk shoulder to shoulder through and slanted down into ankle-deep water throughout. It was a maze down there with creepy graffiti, small chambers with altars, and sometimes the leftovers of a sacrifice. Every now and then, you'd run into other groups of people and you'd want to hide. The last time I ever went, I was in a group of 5. We were pretty far into the maze. Maybe we had been exploring for 2 hours when we heard a small group approaching us. We found a small pile of rocks, about 4 feet in height and 10 feet or so wide, and would hide behind and waited for the group to approach. We turned off our flashlights and could see firelights begin to approach the hallway we'd run from, and slashing sounds increased in volume. There were 3 people, all wearing black. One had a torch that was on fire. Think Indiana Jones temple vibes. They came about 20 feet from our hiding pile and turned to the concrete wall. With all 5 of us watching, the guy with the torch walks toward the wall, puts his hand on it, and the wall folds in and parts for them. It was loud and heavy sounding, like you'd imagine a solid concrete door to sound. It sounded mechanical in its opening, and he definitely didn't need force to do it. The 3 people walk inside, and it closes behind them. After trying to figure out what we had seen, we went to the wall, and there was no opening. There are no bends, no places for it to open, not even any divots in the concrete. It was a solid block, even though we'd all seen otherwise. We felt all over the wall for anything. We even imitated what the guy had done, and yet nothing. We all walk back out without saying a word, and to this day, I have no idea what I saw, but 4 other people watched it with me. I work in a train yard at night, shuttling crews around to and from trains. Now, this yard isn't lit that well in places, leaving large swaths in total darkness. Keep in mind that this is a small depot out in the boonies. Anyway, I'm sitting next to a locomotive waiting for the crew to hop off and take them back to the office. The area I'm in is right at the edge of the light, so about 20 to 30 feet away is black night, save for my headlights. To my left are 4 sets of tracks, with a grassy field beyond that. To my right, a steep embankment leads down to a creek. The gravel road I'm on leads out in the dark. As I'm sitting there, I see a fox run in from the tracks, across the road, and down the slope. I leaned over the seat to see if I could see it, as it had been full sprinting like it was hunting. I sit back, and there is someone standing in the dark right beyond my lights. It was just one of those spots that was darker than the rest of the night, just black on black, but it was huge, like Andre the Giant is huge. I couldn't make out anything else in the dark, but for some reason it seemed to be getting closer without becoming clearer in the light. I turned my high beams on and nothing changed, just a huge dark figure moving closer. I grabbed the radio, starting to get scared, and called for the crew of the train. In the few seconds that it took for them to reply, I swear that thing was freaking grinned. I didn't know that something could have such a huge mouth. I'm talking Jaws mouth on a human. It was the only part that seemed to have any real shape to its body, and it practically glowed in the dark. A second later, the crew replied asking what was wrong. I told them I thought I saw someone walking toward us. They hit the lights of the engine, lighting up everything in front of us. Nothing. Nobody was there. Just empty tracks and roads. They shuttled everything down, climbed off, and I took back to the office. I told them I was certain that something was in front of us. When we got back to the office, they were nice enough to ask one of the clerks to check the security cameras for that area. We watched the video, finding the spot where the fox runs across the tracks. It shows me sitting there, then, after a few seconds, turning on my high beams. A few seconds later, the engine light came back on. Nothing. I apologized for bothering them. They said it was fine. They would rather I report something if I saw something. And I went home. That was about 7 or 8 months ago, and I'm still wary of going down that stretch. I've not seen anything again, but still, that was a huge grin. When I was younger, I would get sick a lot, never know why. My parents just took it as me having a weak immune system, and I did the same because I was overweight for my age. One week I stayed home from school because I had a fever and a headache that wouldn't go away. I couldn't eat or sleep, so I stayed in my room watching various VHS tapes all day. After a couple days, I got fed up with not being able to sleep properly, so I decided to take sleeping medicine. I turned on my lamp, and I kept it on because I'm scared to sleep in the dark, still to this day, at the age of 26. I had Tom and Jerry on. Oh, and while I was watching, I could feel the sensation of being sleepy. It felt good. I felt accomplished. Finally, a nice night of sleep. What was weird was that my body felt odd. My entire body felt as if someone rubbed icy hot on every inch of me. I chose to ignore it because I just wanted to sleep so badly. I could feel myself drifting off into slumber. Suddenly, I felt my right leg going up like it was raising it myself, but I wasn't. I started feeling scared, but the sleepiness was so overpowering and tempting that I chose to ignore my leg. Suddenly, I felt someone pull my arm like I was a kid pulling you to play with them. When I looked at it, it looked like a really young, pale girl standing next to my bed. We met eyes and stared at each other for a few seconds, and I started to cry from being so scared. I turned away to grab the remote to throw at her, but when I turned around, she was gone, and with her came all the pain in my body. The fever was gone, no more headaches, and my body didn't feel like it was icy hot everywhere. Every time I tell someone this story, they tell me it's sleep paralysis, but why did my sickness leave with the vision I saw?